Thaw. Freedom from Frozen Feelings by Don Carter MSW, LCSW. Chapter 1. What the hell is wrong with you? Comedian Bill Cosby has often observed that one of a child's most frequent answers to questions posed by their parents is, "I don't know." He forgets to mention that one of a parent's most frequent questions to their children is some variation of, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I always hated that question. How was I supposed to answer it? "Well, Dad, I'm very happy you asked because I think we really need to talk about this. You see, my childhood dependency needs have not been getting met lately, and as a result, I am suffering from a pretty bad case of low self-esteem and some abandonment issues. If you could see your way clear to lighten up on me a bit, I might have a chance to get back on track." I doubt that would have gone over very well. I am not sure that my alternative approach was much better for my own kids. I modified the question into a little game. When I found myself wanting to ask one of them, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I would stop, raise an eyebrow just a bit, look at them for a moment, and then curiously inquire, "What grade are you in?" They would give the answer, to which I would smile and say, "Oh, that explains it. Maybe they don't teach you about this until next year." Motivation. Motivation has been defined as a drive, a need, a desire to do something. In human beings, motivation involves both conscious and unconscious drives. It is this writer's belief that people all have one ultimate motive in common. This motive drives everything we think, everything we feel, and everything we do from the time we wake in the morning until we go to sleep at night. I believe this motive is simply to be happy. In this case, the term happiness does not necessarily refer to a feeling or emotion. Feelings come and go, so it is not realistic, nor desirable, to hope to stay in one emotional state. Rather, used in this context, happiness is more like a universal state of being that describes and contains other states of being such as contentment, satisfaction, fulfillment, completeness, and wholeness. Again, it is this pursuit of happiness that is at the root of everything we think, everything we feel, and everything we do. We all have this same ultimate goal in common, and we are all doing the best we can, with what we have, to get as close to that ideal as possible. If all of our efforts fail, and we move too far away from the ideal, then things can go very wrong, as is the case for someone who feels empty, unhappy, and unmotivated. As our ultimate goal in life, the desire to be happy motivates us to make decisions based upon what will move us closer to the positive end of a continuum. On the negative end of this continuum is pain, something we try very hard to stay away from. Most of us do not like pain, but it does have a very important role in our lives. Pain is a warning system that tells us when we are moving in the wrong direction, taking us further away from our ultimate goal. Granted, we sometimes purposefully make decisions that we know are going to hurt, in the short term anyway. However, even these painful decisions are driven by the desire to be happy because we know that in the long run we will gain from the short-term pain. For example, deciding not to marry the person of our dreams until we finish college and get our finances in order may be painful in the short term but very rewarding in the long run. It may even play a part in whether the marriage succeeds or fails. When we make decisions like this, we are said to be mature because we can delay gratification. There are other times we make decisions that don't make us happy, such as when we act without hesitating long enough to think it through. For example, impulsively taking out a new line of credit or buying a new car when we cannot afford it may provide some instant gratification, but soon leads to buyer's remorse and other negative long-term consequences when the bills start coming in. Buyer's remorse is an example of an emotional consequence we suffer when we realize what we have done and how it is going to lead to our future unhappiness. When we don't stop and think it through before we act, we are said to have impulse control problems, a sign of immaturity. When immaturity persists into adulthood, it suggests that some sort of developmental delay has taken place, such as emotional arrest. Developmental delays are usually the consequence of unmet childhood needs. Frozen feeling states are another way of describing these developmental issues. We will explore these concepts in great detail throughout this book. We will also explore a very simple, yet incredibly powerful formula: A leads to B. This formula is where A is a choice we make and B is the outcome. The outcome is where we find ourselves on the pleasure and pain continuum as a consequence of our choice.
Maslow's hierarchy.
The American psychologist Abraham Maslow, 1968, devised a 6-level hierarchy of needs that, according to his theory, drive human behavior. I believe that each of these needs must be met in order for one to truly be happy. Maslow progressively ranks human needs as follows. 1. Physiological, such as food, shelter, and clothing. 2. Security and safety. 3. Love and feelings of belonging. 4. Competence, prestige, and esteem. 5. Curiosity and the need to know. And 6. Self-actualization. Maslow suggests that each preceding need must be met, at least to some degree, before one can go on to the next level. For instance, a child may not be able to pay attention in class if she is preoccupied with hunger. Maslow refers to the first 4 levels as deficiency needs and the last 2, growth needs. While these needs are important for all human beings, special attention must be given to how we meet these needs in children because, as we shall see, it is the meeting of these needs, or not meeting them, that sets in motion a whole series of events that have an impact on the adjustment of that child. In children, deficiency needs are also referred to as dependency needs because children cannot meet these needs themselves. They depend upon their caretakers to meet these needs for them. Childhood dependency needs. Small children cannot meet their own needs, much like a plant cannot water itself. As we grow, we become more independent and able to meet more and more of our needs on our own. There are 2 groups of dependency needs. The first group is the survival needs. These are what Maslow calls the basic needs for food, shelter, clothing, medical attention, safety, and protection. If these needs are not met, at least to a minimal degree, the child is likely to die. Notice that the survival needs include the child's need to feel safe and protected. If a child does not feel safe, she cannot relax. She is always on guard, scanning her environment for danger. Her anxiety level is very high, and she has to stay alert and tuned in to everything going on around her, causing her to become hypervigilant, hyperalert, and/or hypersensitive. Feeling safe helps a child relax. If they can't relax, they can't play. If they can't play, it interferes with their growth. Play is how children learn and grow along normal developmental lines. Because feeling safe is so important, children have a built-in psychological defense mechanism called idealization which functions to help them feel safe. This is necessary for them to be able to relax enough to play, which again, is the business of being a child. Through idealization, children, not referring to teenagers here, set their parents up on a pedestal, seeing them as godlike creatures. This makes them feel safe because, if I am protected by a godlike creature, then nothing can get to me. Quote from John Bradshaw's Shame and Addiction. Of course, children cannot yet think that way, but they get it that way in an emotional sense. We will come back to idealization later on. The emotional dependency needs are what Maslow refers to as the basic needs for love and esteem. These are the needs that nourish a child emotionally. If they get these needs met fully on a consistent basis, children thrive and flourish. If they don't get these needs met, they suffer to an extent proportional to their lack of need fulfillment. John Bradshaw, 1992-2005, refers to the following as primary emotional dependency needs: time, attention, affection, and direction. Time equals love. Bradshaw and others point out that a small child equates time with love. In his video Shame and Addiction, Bradshaw states, little kids get it that whatever their parents give their time to is what they love. So if dad is gone, working 10 to 12 hours a day, which may be his way of showing love, the kids feel that dad loves what he is doing more than he loves them. They don't understand about budgets and bills. They don't understand that this may be dad's way of demonstrating his love for the family. All they know is he is usually gone, and when he comes home, he is too tired to spend time with them. All he wants to do is rest, read the paper, and watch some TV. The main point here is that the children need time from both parents, not just one. They need enough time from each parent to get the message that they are loved as much as anyone else in the family. It is not as much a question of quantity as it is of consistency and quality. Quality time is when the child's other 3 emotional needs are also being met. Attention equals worth. Just as children equate time with love, they get it that attention equals worth or value. Attention is more than just listening to the child, it is attending to them. Parents attend to children when they take them seriously, show genuine concern and curiosity about who they are, what they think, how they feel. Attentive parents notice when the child is struggling with a feeling and help them figure out what it is and what to do about it. They are engaged in their child's life, to the extent that they know how their day went, who they are hanging out with, what the highlight of their week was, etc. Children need lots of attention, and if they don't get it, their behavior becomes attention-seeking. This is not deliberate on their part. Most of the time, children really don't know why they act out in ways that are obviously designed to get attention. They are compelled to do it because they need attention, not because they want attention. When was the last time you heard this statement, "Oh, he's trying to get attention, just ignore him"? Sometimes this is bad advice, other times it is not. There are two reasons kids show attention-seeking behavior: when they are not getting enough attention or when they have been used to getting too much attention. The latter will be discussed when we look at the need for direction. Affection equals approval. As a therapist, it has been the writer's experience that affection is the area where many families seem to fall short. Many of my clients have told me, "Well, mine were not the most affectionate parents in the world, but I always knew they loved me." I am sure it is true that they were loved. However, I am also aware that kids need hugs, kisses, pats on the back, and words of encouragement on a regular basis. Displays of affection are how approval messages are sent from the parent to the child. Affection says, "I like you, I like who you are and who you are becoming, I am glad you are my child, I am happy I get to be your parent, I am grateful we have been blessed with you." In other words, affection is how the child gets the message that they are approved of by the parent. How many of us know a child who is not sure what his father thinks of him? Or one who is uncertain whether she measures up to her mother's expectations? How many are sure that we don't measure up? Kids who don't get enough affection display approval-seeking behaviors such as people-pleasing. They act out their need for approval by trying to please mom or dad. When their attempts go unnoticed, they try harder and harder to please them, setting in motion the development of an ingrained pattern of people-pleasing behavior. We will look more at these types of behavioral patterns later. Direction. Guidance equals competence. Children are born not knowing how to do things. They are biologically programmed to survive in the wild, but everything about how to live in our culture must be learned, including relationships. Our caretakers are our teachers. Dad shows us how to be a man in the world, mom shows us how to be a woman in the world, and they both show us how men and women get along with each other. In other words, our cultural and interpersonal programming is not biologically endowed but comes through the modeling of our parents, whether they realize it or not. In the ideal situation, parents do realize the powerful influence their behavior has on the development of their children. They also know that to be good teachers they have to be available and approachable, i.e., the children know when and where to find dad or mom, and they know that it is okay to go to them for advice and assistance. To be available goes back to the issues of time and attention. Parents must make the time to attend to the questions of their kids. To be approachable, they must also be patient, tolerant, and affectionate. Good teachers understand that kids need repetition to learn. They may have to ask and be shown more than once in order to develop competence at a certain task. A sense of competence and mastery are critical to the development of a child's sense of self. For instance, when a parent teaches a child to ride a bike, they hold on until the child gets her balance, and then they let go. Usually, the child will crash a time or two, but soon they take off and ride. Did you ever see a child take off on a bike for the first time? They light up like a Christmas tree and almost universally shout the same thing. "Look at me. I'm doing it." This is a statement of competence and provides a huge boost to their ego. After a while, you might hear the same child shout, "Look at me. I'm doing it with no hands." This shows that the child now has a sense of mastery. Do you ever wonder why kids do the same thing repeatedly once they become proficient at it and avoid things they might not do well? Satisfying the need for a sense of competence and mastery is the reason. Children need as many "I can do it" experiences as we can give them. Things like tying their shoe for the first time, driving a car, going on a date, learning to dance, getting good grades, learning to cook, hitting a baseball, etc. Parents help their kids get the "I can do it" experience by helping them develop the skill sets necessary to perform a given task. This again requires time, attention, and affection. If a child learns the fundamentals of something, they are much more likely to succeed. If they try to learn on their own, without any ideas of the fundamentals, they are likely to fail more times than they need to. Kids who fail too much eventually give up trying. They need available and approachable teachers to help them learn. Approachable teachers help without resorting to criticism when working with a child. It is truly an art, and most of us were raised on criticism, so it is difficult to learn. Healthy critical feedback comes with love, tolerance, and without shame. For example, helpful criticism might sound like this. I know it's difficult. You are doing very well. I fell off more than this when I was your age. I know you can do it. Let's try one more time for today. Shameful criticism sounds like this. Oh, come on, don't be a big baby. You always make things harder than they should be. Your brother took off on his first try. Are you going to let him make you look bad? One other issue regarding guidance is overprotection, which must also be explored here. There are some families that have rigid, sometimes extremely over-controlling rules designed to protect the child. For example, the training wheels don't come off until you are 12 years old, you can't climb trees, you can go outside but don't do anything, and you must wear a football helmet if you are going to get on the swing set. They also do everything for the child, even that which the child should be able to do themselves. Overprotection and overinvolvement is a result of a parent's inability to tolerate any chance that their child might get hurt, physically or emotionally, by failure. This can easily be mistaken for love, when, in fact, it is not. This is more about the parent's need to feel safer than it is about the child's need for protection. The child not only misses out on the I can do it experiences but also gets a message from the godlike creatures in his life that they can't do it. A feeling of incompetence is the result. The child feels, if mom and dad don't think I can do it, then I must not be able to do it. These kids usually end up with all kinds of problems with indecision, shame, fear, and anxiety. Discipline equals character. Discipline is the second form of direction kids need. Children are born without the internal structures to control their own impulses. Therefore, they were given external structures, called parents, to help them. When parents set limits for their children, they are telling them, here's the line, if you step over it, this is what happens. Again, A leads to B. Setting and enforcing good limits helps develop the internal structures necessary for children to control their own impulses. These structures build character. Character consists of two primary internal structures: values, the knowledge of right and wrong, and self-discipline, the ability to delay or deny the gratification of impulses based upon that knowledge. If we remember a simple formula, A leads to B, then we will have quite a bit of knowledge about setting good limits. Cause and effect seems to be a law of the universe. Simply put, when our behavior, A, is a good thing, then the outcome, B, should also be a good thing. When A is a bad thing, then B should also be a bad thing. The consequences we receive, positive or negative, shape our behaviors by reinforcing the good and dissuading the bad. While this formula is simple in theory, it is difficult in practice because this life does not always go as it should, as we shall see in the next chapter. Healthy limits are firm, effective, and consistent. The limits are also connected and proportionate to the behavior, that is, let the punishment fit the crime. When parents set and consistently enforce good limits for their children, they are teaching them an important law of the universe. This will be extremely significant to them later in their adulthood when life becomes their teacher. Conversely, when we are inconsistent with the limits, or they are inappropriate for the behavior, then we are doing our children a huge disservice. For instance, when a teenager does A, for example, comes home smelling of alcohol, and they should receive B, grounded for a certain period of time, but the parent feels sorry for them because the prom is this weekend, so they provide C, letting them off the hook and giving them $50 to have a good time, then the message sent and received is, sometimes, A leads to C. In other words, if I screw up when it really counts, mom and dad will bail me out. Providing C when B should follow interferes with the grand design, enabling problem behaviors to persist. Decisions about good limits are not always easy. Some limits must be non-negotiable. For example, those related to the safety of the child and those connected with strongly held family values, while others can be structured to teach the child flexibility and how to compromise. For example, when the child does A, breaks curfew by 30 minutes for the first time ever, and the agreed-upon consequence is B, grounded for the next 2 weekends, the negotiated agreement might be that the child can choose which 2 weekends of the next month to be grounded. Another word for limits is boundaries. When parents set and consistently enforce healthy limits, they are helping their child learn healthy boundaries. Children who don't know where the boundaries are tend to feel unsafe. Spoiled child syndrome is what results when a child is given blanket approval for everything he or she does. When there are little or no consequences provided for these children, they push the limits and push the limits until someone steps in to say no. Misbehavior in this case is discipline-seeking behavior. The child is unconsciously acting out his need for help with controlling his impulses, and they are compelled to get it. Just as in overprotection, the well-meaning intentions of the overindulgent parent backfire. Usually, the parent is trying very hard not to hurt the child's self-esteem with criticism, so they rarely provide this form of protection. The child gets the message that the godlike creatures in their life have no expectations of them, because they are not capable of living up to any expectations due to incompetence. Other forms of discipline include the ones that mom and dad model for us in their own daily behavior, including good manners, hygiene, work ethics, etc. We watch and learn from them. The old adage, do as I say, not as I do, is not very effective in helping our kids develop and internalize these daily disciplines. The most effective tool in teaching kids is good role modeling. Limits and consequences simply reinforce what we demonstrate. The iceberg model. Throughout the book, I will refer to the iceberg model, Figure 1, to develop a picture or roadmap of what happens when childhood dependency needs go unmet. The iceberg model has been used as a visual tool to simplify very abstract concepts of being human by many people, including Sigmund Freud, Friel, and Dr. Larry Crabb to name a few. You will hear many of the ideas and principles of the pioneers in the field of addiction theory such as Charles Whitfield MD, John Bradshaw, Pia Mellody, Vernon Johnson, Claudia Black, Terence Gorski, and many others. They have been my teachers on such topics as addiction, codependency, adult-child syndrome, abandonment, shame, and childhood dependency needs. I have used the iceberg to integrate some of their ideas, along with many of my own, into this unified model of the issues underlying most addictive, mental, emotional, interpersonal, and even spiritual problems. To delve deeper into many of the concepts presented here, see Appendix A for a list of suggested readings. It has been my experience that most people have a profound revelation about who they are, where they came from, and where they can go from here after hearing my iceberg lecture. It is my hope that this book will produce the same results for you, the reader. Again, the best thing about this model is that it keeps some very abstract ideas relatively simple and provides a concrete roadmap for understanding and preparing for change. So let's get started. The iceberg represents a human being. The waterline represents the dividing line between what is in our consciousness, also known as awareness, above, and what is in our subconscious, or our unawareness, below. The deeper one looks beneath the surface, symbolizes the deeper we are into our unawareness, that is, our subconscious. It is my hope the reader will have a better idea of how to achieve that one ultimate motive, which we all have in common, by the time they have finished reading. Please, if you are a parent, as you read, try to focus on at least as much of your own childhood experience as you do on the experience of your children. This book is not about blaming parents because, as we shall discuss later, the vast majority of parents did the best they could with what they had been given. If you are reading this book, chances are that sometime in the past you have said something like, "My kids are going to have it better than me." This statement is an affirmation that you understand what it is like not to get your dependency needs met, at least to some degree. End of Chapter 1.